stop and think before you put anything forward for social media. Would your mother approve of that? And if the answer's no, then post it again, put paid behind it.
Welcome to Connected Thinking, our series of chats with standout voices from the world of marketing, where we unpack what's trending, what's shifting, and what's coming next. I'm Niamh, your host and an account director at Scene Connects. Today I'm joined by James Pearson, Digital Marketing Manager at Arla Foods. James has been working with influencers all his working life. That's long before social media was born. For events, magazines, TV, you name it. Bringing a bit of his DE&I approach to the digital marketing at Arla, he is constantly learning and developing his knowledge of how to work with the right talent, celebs and influencers that can honestly represent your brand. James focuses on creating more of an emotional connection with the viewer through real-life, relatable storytelling. Welcome, James. So to kick things off, how would you describe Arla's current approach to influence marketing and how has it evolved over the past year?
Well, obviously it is constantly evolving. It has been a bit stop and start this year. And I think we're now in a really happy place where we're ready to start with a bang. Kind of a sort of a reset and a fresh approach. And I think the exciting thing for me is the plasters are off. We've finally landed the message of trying not to over-script everything and actually working with our talent to educate us on how they use our products, what inspires them, what inspires their audience, and lean into that and take some learnings from that. So I think it's an exciting time to almost start again.
Oh, amazing. And you've done such a good job of making a shift within Arla over the years. Tell us a little bit about what you've been kind of having conversations about internally and where you've seen the most kind of progress from.
It is a bit odd bringing me in as I am the oldest member of the marketing team. So it is a bit like inviting Cher onto Love Island as a contestant. But look, if Cher can survive through every single decade since the rebirth of Christ, then I can definitely do a few TikToks. We are coming from a place now where we're embracing more of the real stories. I don't want to use the dreaded word of authenticity, but it's letting our talent speak. In the past, I think we saw influencers as celebrities. So it was very much about who's been on Love Island or I'm a celebrity. They're expensive. They're quite diva-esque. They're often not social media ambassadors at all. And I think we've now got to understand who plays a really good role in social media channels and have their own voices.
100%. And it's been really nice to see you kind of take Arla on that journey as well. So watch this space. What platforms or formats are you currently seeing the strongest return from? And are there any social shifts that you're really excited for right now?
Well, it's definitely TikTok. Thank God we're not a Snapchat. No disservice to anyone that works at Snapchat.
We have no platform favorability.
I couldn't cope with another channel, but I think the excitement is on TikTok. I think we do recognise that a lot of our shoppers might spend more time in Instagram and, dare I say, Facebook. We do still use that. But what TikTok gives us is that creative spark, that fire. If it works on TikTok, if it can keep people entertained for more than 2 seconds, then it's probably going to work on your other platforms. I think we do need to get better at not just thinking about a copy and paste or just change my captions or whatever for a different platform. That's probably the same challenge that a lot of clients go through, because you see some great work and you want to broadcast it in as many places as possible. But and often what's really niche about TikTok is those trends, which if you're watching it on Instagram, those trends often don't even happen. They're not even started as a spark yet. Mm-hmm. You know, it can take 3 months for something that's been a whole community on TikTok before it starts showing up on Instagram. Unless you're having an affair at a Coldplay concert, and then it's going to cut through on every single channel.
Including LinkedIn.
Yeah, which is brilliant.
I think one of the really important things that you kind of touched on there is that entertainment factor on TikTok. I know obviously across like the different brands that you oversee and work with on a day-to-day, it can be really easy to kind of go down the expected route of let's do loads of recipe content and lots of yogurt bowls, which yes, has its role. But I think a lot of what you've been trying to educate internally around is how can we make this actually engaging and entertaining for the viewer, but therefore work best on the platform?
Well, let's not be naive. We're in brand marketing and trying to script comedy when we're not a Ryanair or a Hobbycraft Wimbledon. We don't do a lot of comedy. So scripting comedy can be really awkward and come back badly. I personally would love to do more comedy. It's probably no surprise. Probably everybody does it. They're on TikTok for joy and happiness and silliness, but it doesn't mean you can get it right. And I think my learnings from doing a wee bit of comedy is you just have to be really transparent and approach it as, look, this is going to be an ad, but there is going to be a hook and a bit of silliness at the end. One of my favourites, I think he's called Christopher Hall or something. He did an influencer ad in comedy for Dreamies. And obviously when you're working with cats, that's easy to do because let's face it, they own the internet. But he really managed to capture, he played up to being a cat in the video, which kind of took that quirkiness around the whole trans debate. What gender are you? And then he walked out to their out-of-home billboard experience where they had cats climbing up a building to get to the packet of Dreamies. And he just brought it all to life in that really nice way. So when you're transparent about comedy, I think you can get away with it. But we're still doing a lot of yogurt bowls and inspirational recipes and trying to make them as viral as possible. And we have seen a lot of success in those moments, particularly working with yourself, where you've introduced us to new audiences before Dubai chocolates kicked off and become a thing. So, yeah.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. How do you balance brand storytelling with performance when it comes to influencer-led campaigns?
In putting together my latest brief for Arla Protein, I was tasked with going back over the history of 4 years of influencer work and having a look at what really resonated and cut through. And it's not going to be a surprise. When we let the influencers speak and tell their real life story, that content, even longer form video, performed much, much better from a view through rate, from a shareability and engagement. The comments that we got that were very real because it was relatable. So that, I mean, I know I work in digital marketing. I should always be looking at performance, but you're very quickly on to the next thing, aren't you? But that gave me a lot of confidence to think, right, we can rewrite this brief around real people, real stories, and letting them speak. So yeah, performance does matter. Note to myself, James, do look back at past results.
It's like, give yourself a slap on the wrist. No, wait, let me go back and look at where this is actually coming from.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think sometimes when you get a brief, you can be really excited about, like, oh, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. But actually, it was one of the things you picked up on when we did our response to brief for Skier was, I can see how you've got there, you know, with the model that we use, etc., and all of the insights. The actual creative at the end of it and what we're saying we're going to do makes sense based on that. But ultimately, we can look back at all of the old performance data that you share with us and go, oh, okay. So then when we're recommending our platform types or our content types, we're already aligned.
Yeah.
So I think we're onto a winner there.
Well, I mean, it came through loud and clear that your strategy was what won us the confidence to just dive in straight away. We couldn't wait to get started and start seeing what some of the concepts the influencers came back with. So yeah, we're excited. We're on the cusp of that.
Content will be live soon as well. Are there any standout influencer campaigns that have really impressed you recently and why, other than your Dreamies one?
Yeah. Comedy works really well for me. One of my favourite is Pharrell Hegarty. She's currently on Coronation Street, but you know, right through COVID, she was doing really relatable, funny memes. And I noticed she got picked up by talent and she started to do briefs for cleaning brands. And they were just the same as her own stories. They were really funny. But I think the platforms know that this is a talent ad. And and they're waiting for the budget to go behind it. So I think you need to look at those sort of timeless videos and work out, could that be a campaign that we, has got more than one lifespan in it, and we can put more paid behind it and reach new audiences. And then hopefully that attracts them into the brand personality, so that then when they see some of your more organic content, they're a bit warmer towards you. And it's helping them understand, the features and benefits of your product a little better. But definitely the personality. You can't expect people to remember everything. Trying to jam in loads of messages. We do this. Did you know we do this? And did you know we do that as well? Just keep it really, really clean and simple. Another profile I follow all the time is the Sylvanian families.
They're so good.
They're so cute. And obviously why I love them is they swear. They've got drugs in it, dare I say. Dysfunctional children. They talk about Donald Trump. My team came back from an event and went, this is an influencer. And it was the Sylvanian families talking about Reese handbags or something. I was like, yes, can we put them in our briefs? So yeah, stuff like that.
I'll do some digging, see what we can do. No, I think you hit the nail on the head as well when you said about what works for you at the very beginning when you were answering that question. I think sometimes we become so blindsided, well, what would I engage with? What would I engage with? But actually, we're not always the audience. And it seems really like, well, of course, like, but it isn't, especially when you're in it. And I think, again, when we take a step back and we look at, okay, who's the audience? What are, the behaviors of that audience? What does that audience already engage with? When we do our strategy and we get to the point of actually being able to present to you, you can see that it all kind of links up, which is nice.
You almost need to do that before you do the reveal, is ask your brand team to try and take off their, unconscious bias lens and view it through a shopper, a different type of shopper. Who are we trying to attract with this story? And it's something I have to tell myself as well, because I can see people automatically looking for a direct replica of themselves or their friends. And when it works really, really well is when you find people on the cusp of a breakthrough. They might be appearing in loads of channels and, you're then getting on that skyrocket. So yeah, take off your unconscious bias and view people for who they are and what they can bring as a point of differentiation.
Amazing. So how do you define meaningful representation in influence marketing?
It all comes back to just letting the influencer speak and being brave in yourself. There's a massive division in society at the moment. And part of that is, young men not finding their voice. Women are really strong and empowering, finally. And more of that, but it can push young men to feel alienated, and we know the danger of where that might go. So I'm quite excited about putting a different spin on young male representation. For me, I work on Arla Protein, and that could be, how an everyday person is doing their everyday training, but their day job might be as a drag performer. So why fitness matters to them is putting a different twist in it. I think there will be a nervousness of brand people going towards trans people. And I don't think you need to do that nervousness. As take the learnings from the past of knowing who you are, be proud of who you work with, let them speak, and don't step away from it. Support them every way right through the journey, even down to the comments. Get involved and, be that pioneer. They actually say that now brands have more power than politicians, in terms of consumer respect. So use your budgets wisely. If you're going to impact society, represent all of society in your campaigns and, try and educate and be aligned with the right side of history.
100%. And I also think everybody's got a story that deserves to be heard and their own experience when it comes to kind of like interacting with your brand. Why on earth would you alienate that story away and focus on just whatever else is there, like everyone deserves representation. And like you say, brands do have a massive responsibility as long as they're doing it for the right reasons and they're doing it in the right way.
And those are the campaigns that will cut through and stand the test of time for years. They'll get more shareability. We often talk about winning awards, and that doesn't actually matter. Did the award make a better campaign? Of course, no, it did not. But there is a criteria in that judging that, we should actually put into our briefs so that we're being that best practice. It's giving something back to the viewer, not just broadcasting what you want to tell them. So you've got to understand their human insight. We all know somebody who's older. Over 30% of us have some form of disability, whether it's seen or not seen. So we can play those stories back in with our talent, and it can reach 100% of the audience because their story is going to be relatable. It's going to find its feet. Yes, you're always going to have haters. It doesn't matter as long as you stand true to who you are and stand with your talent and support them. They need a career too. We're supporting them. So, I do try and put as much blend in our talent mix as possible to give that back.
Yeah, and you've always been like a massive pioneer for that as well. And I think we've come a long way in terms of working together and how we position influencers to you and understanding what it is that you guys are looking for as a brand as well. And I think it's something that together we've really nailed. And in all of the briefs moving forward, like we've been sharing with you, the creator list, etc., and really clearly identifying where those kind of like voices are, and making sure that they're included. And you obviously take that back to the business and have those conversations, etc. And it does mean that our lovely Arla campaigns are always very representative, which is nice.
Well, I wouldn't say I was a pioneer. I would say I've always forever learning. And one of the things that excited me the most when I first started working with you is switching on my Teams link and seeing the diversity in your team meant it gave me the confidence to know I was going to get that matched in our response. So it wasn't taking a brief from me and replaying everything under my lens. It came from different age perspectives, different cultural backgrounds, different gender. And that is a really valuable thing for you to have in your team right now for us to help us deliver that.
They're a great bunch.
Well, I learn all the time from what you're giving us, and you live on the social platforms. You're able to know what's trending and what's coming up and what would be the right thing for us to get involved in. I think we're in a place where we're not necessarily there yet to start a trend. But I'd like to put out, start a few little fires and hope we can get there in a few years' time. We can be at the forefront and actually starting a trend like Hobbycraft Wimbledon did.
No pressure.
One day.
Do you think the industry has made enough progress when it comes to diversity and influencer marketing? And what do you think still needs to change?
I think there was a massive wake-up call. Everyone felt the earth shake with the George Floyd moment. And I think we spotted that. Well, I work in advertising, so we spotted that in advertising during lockdown when we had our television screens on. And we'd seen these big brand corporate polished ads from the likes of Just Eat to Tesco to Vodafone. And suddenly these brands that are always on couldn't afford to make those high production videos. They had to rely on hand filming and filming real people. So for me, I saw a lot of shift of more of diverse representation. And I thought that was a really positive thing. You can also spot when it's done very badly. And you look at some of the supermarket ads where their Christmas dining room table would have 37 people on it, so they could represent every single nationality, and that becomes a bit tick boxy. So, you'd like to think there's been a big step forward, but when you look at things like the Channel 4 Mirror on the Industry report, there's still an alarming underrepresentation, particularly from older generation, how they appear as personalities. We definitely, as human beings, all put people in boxes, and old people, we all have ageism. I still myself, I always lie about my age. I'm 104. And I think we can do a lot more with representation today.
No, I completely agree with you. I think the really good point that you made there was you can tell when brands are doing it well. And I know this is a conversation that whenever we talk about representation or diversity across any of the marketing landscape, it's always, brands need to be doing it authentically, brands need to do this. But the fact that it's 2025 and we're still having that conversation and brands are still getting it wrong means that clearly something isn't resonating when they're going into these meetings. So again, it's something we've been kind of like chatting about a lot is, what does diversity and representation mean? A lot of the time people can just go to straight, okay, I need to make sure that I've got POC within my ads, for example. That is not representation. That is you trying to do a tick box exercise, right?
Yeah.
There clearly is still work to be done because you've got this happening everywhere. And I think the Space NK brand trip, I know, very relevant example. It's been viral all over LinkedIn. The representation that they had there and why that kind of gained so much traction was because it wasn't done for external viewership. It was, we've got a separate accommodation for the Muslim creators so that they can have a little bit more privacy when it comes to wanting to sunbathe. That was never part of the content.
Amazing.
It was never part of what was ever meant to be consumer facing. However, those creators in that moment made a piece of content about how seen they felt and how, amazing that was that the brand had done that. We should be doing that as brands anyway. So that's one of the things that's been going around, semi frequently at the minute.
We definitely saw that in the Arla protein brief. So we were looking for real stories. We were looking to represent diversity in society in those real life stories. We were looking for connectability. But what I didn't want to see was a tick boxing exercise. The people that appear in that brief do need to represent the brand. We have like a persona and an active achiever. And that isn't about putting people in boxes. It is very much a mindset. So you can be an active achiever at 85 or 18 or whatever, wherever you come from. It's just your story. And like you've mentioned, a great brand story there, which we can all learn and relate from. And I remember the Be Perfect makeup brand from January, I think it was 2024. They actually cast for real people and then they put them to the forefront of the campaign, and their videos were really long and it was them telling their story, and they never talked about the makeup. There was but you knew it came from that brand. And it was my lovely social media manager, Erin, that gave me that example, and it still inspires me today and helped underpin the brief for Arla Protein, because after they've delivered that campaign, they can go on to represent all sides of society. Anybody is open to and proud to use their makeup because they started that platform. They were in it for the long game. They didn't shy away from it. And you do have to be in it for the long game. So it's not just a one campaign and then we're done, on to the next brief. It's setting the foundations for a long-term brand plan.
100%. Which brands do you think are getting it right when it comes to delivering diverse and inclusive influencer campaigns? And what is it about their approach that stands out to you?
So I really liked the campaign with the Arsenal women's football team, because that was born out of human insight, not product or category insight. And the human insight was that women are much more likely to throw their sports kit away rather than wash it because of period stains. The fear was that nothing they could use would wash that away. I don't do sport. I go to the gym regularly. And so I've been reusing my sports kit for, far too long. So the prospect of throwing it away is bad for the environment, but, bad for everything. And they actually embraced the period pains, and they spoke to the football team, and they were doing this, and they developed their own sign language so that we're on the pitch. And if one of them was, in their period, they were able to do that secret sign language because they were very conscious that if they were about to score a goal, that was going to get photographed. And what they didn't want in the photograph was the period stain being the talking point of the picture. that is going to really impact your performance as a sports person. Even if you're just turning up every week for your local hockey club, lots of people were dropping out that month because they were at that time of the month. And that's going to affect your personal development. I have to keep going. So you can see where I can really resonate with this story, even though I don't have period pain. It still has empathy for me. So the Women's Football Club said, no, we're going to embrace our stains. And they put that to the forefront of the campaign. And then they worked with Ian Wright because what they needed to bring was the male audience into the understanding. And only a very few of women's football clubs actually have female football coaches, which is quite shocking, isn't it? And so there's lots of things there to unpick. And if you look at the women's football team right now, they're the ones that are sorting out the shit around racism in football. They're the ones who've got the platform for people to connect with and understand. They're the empowerment. So I think that was a fantastic campaign for the brand to be proud of and put their name behind. And it got people talking. It ended up in out of home, on social media, across all of their channels. And it's something that lives a lifetime and stays in your memory. I'd love to create something on the same out of just a very small human insight.
What emerging behaviours or content trends are you keeping a close eye on?
Right, this is the question where I'm supposed to speak about AI and omnichannel. And the first thing that sprang to mind when you asked me this question was the Labubu's.
I knew you were going to say Labubu's.
So I've seen the Labubu's all over my TikToks for the last 2 weeks. And then I went shopping in town this week and saw them all over the market stand. So I want a Labubu. And I've just come back from my Greek holiday. And obviously I was there posting my boring Greek reels, getting those no views. Maybe next time I go on holiday, I'm going to take a Labubu with me.
Please do. James, I expect photos not just showing me what beach you're on, which you sent me twice last week, but also Labubu and the Labubu on said beach.
Yeah. And do you know another emerging trend, which I think we should all get behind, is the men's micro shorts. They're absolutely everywhere. Even the influencers are talking about them. Guys, you think you're attracting an awful lot of women's eyeballs. You're not. Let me tell you, you're attracting the gay men and we're loving it. Keep on with the men's micro shorts. I'm having a lot more emphasis on my leg day in the gym because of the men's micro shorts. So no bad influence.
I absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much, James. We have 2 quick fire questions.
Okay, gulp.
Favourite book or podcast you'd recommend?
So podcast is definitely How to Fail with Elizabeth Day. Yes, she gets on a lot of celebrity guests, but it's not about the power of the celebrity. It's about them talking very openly. Yes, every podcast makes you cry, belly laugh, but she does it in a real way. And one of my proudest achievements, it was my brand manager, Laura, did rip off the parachute and take the jump to sponsor the Elizabeth Day show. And we had the fabulous episode with Vicky Patterson. And we heard all about her real life stories. So I tune into that, I share it with all my friends. And that's the power of podcasting. We always say that there's more podcasts than people in the UK, but you've got to find one that's got a real loyal audience. So that one really works for me. And I'm quite excited about Graham Norton has just come back to podcasting with Maria. And I don't know if you ever listened to his Radio 2 show, but they always had a problem sharing moment where the audience would write in with their problems and they'd dissect the hell out of them. Honestly, it's hilarious. Listen to that. In terms of book, you asked me about a book.
Well, I did. Favourite book. It was favourite book or podcast, but give us a favourite book.
Oh, well, I'll give you a favourite book as well. Melanie B. Autobiography is immediately springing to mind because that isn't what you think it's going to be. You think it's going to be a load of showbiz tittle-tattle about, her rise to fame and girl power. But there's a hell of a lot of story there around how women are in toxic relationships and giving that empowerment to stand alone and get out of that environment. So, I think we can learn a lot from the power of celebrity influence in autobiographies as well.
Okay, that is a good recommendation. I feel like we like similar things, so I take your recommendations very seriously. Okay, and then second quickfire question. The best piece of advice you've received?
Stop and think before you put anything forward for social media. Would your mother approve of that? And if the answer's no, then don't post it. And I've always remembered that. And I think if my mother doesn't approve of it, post it again, put paid behind it. That would be my break all the brand guidelines rule book. There is a famous Madonna quote that I always think of, and actually this does matter. It's, I never want to be taken too seriously. And it is about bringing fun into everything that you do. We don't live forever. Work can be fun as well. And if it's fun, we get a hell of a lot more out of it from a collaborative point of view. So bring your whole self to work, and don't be afraid of that.
We have a laugh, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Got to have a laugh.
Well, thank you so much, James.
No, thank you.
You've been amazing as always. Thank you for joining us on Connected Thinking.
Thank you very much for having me and listening to me prattle on.